Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Viewers, we begin our 12th topic today, and this topic relates to certain narratives which say that the Prophet ﷺ would seek out a certain pillar in his mosque, the Masjid al-Nabawi, and he would pray beside that pillar, and that pillar is called famously Ustuwanah al-Mushaf, which means the pillar of the Mushaf. Now, this would obviously signify that there was a certain Mushaf which should have been placed near that pillar, and that is why it is called Ustuwanah al-Mushaf, or the pillar of the Mushaf. Now, the question which has arisen because of these narratives is that which exactly was this Mushaf? Because there are certain scholars, like, for example, Tamanna Ahmadi, who think that since the Qur'an had been collected and finalized in written form in the times of the Prophet ﷺ in the form of suhuf or bound volumes, it was that particular Qur'an which had been placed near the pillar, and which when at times was withdrawn from that place, as we shall see later on, that the Prophet thought that it was a blessed place and he would pray right at the place where that Musaf had been placed and later withdrawn. But there are other scholars who think differently, and so therefore it is important that we investigate as to what these narratives actually imply. And first I'll just read out a representative text of this narrative, and then we shall see how Ahmadi's point of view stands to the test of criticism, or, as I said, other scholars also contend differently, and see what they view and how their view stands to the test of historical criticism also. So the text that I'm going to read out before you is recorded by Imam Bukhari in his Al-Jami al-Sahih, and the words are, it is related by Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid. So he says, حدثنا يزيد بن أبي عبيد قال كنت آتي مع سلمة بن الأكوع فيصلي عند الأسطوانة التي عند المصحف فقلت يا أبا مسلم أراك تتحرى الصلاة عند هذه الأسطوانة قال فإني رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يتحرى الصلاة عندها. Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid says, I came over with Salama ibn al-Aqwa to the Masjid al-Nabawi, or the mosque of the Prophet, and he prayed near the pillar near which the Musaf of the Qur'an was placed. I asked, O Abu Muslim, I see you seeking to pray near this pillar. He replied, I saw the Prophet seeking to pray near it. So Salma, he says that the reason that he has prayed near that column is that he saw the Prophet praying beside that column. So this is the representative text, viewers, which I wanted to read out, and now we shall examine how various people have interpreted the Musaf which is implied in this narrative. Now, as I said earlier on, that there are scholars who have different opinions on this, but in particular, scholars like Aini and Al-Kastalani, both of whom we know are very prominent commentators of Al-Jami al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari, it is their opinion that actually the Musaf which is mentioned in this particular narrative refers to the Musaf which was found in the times of Usman in the mosque of the Prophet, and which actually existed when Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid visited with Salama ibn al-Aqwa, and he saw that Musaf, and he saw Salama praying beside that column. So according to Kastalani and Aini, both of whom are commentators of Al-Bukhari, this was basically the Musaf of Usman, which he had copied. Obviously know that he had copied a number of Masahif in his own times, but he, according to them, placed one of them besides that column. Now, on the other hand, Tamanna Ahmadi, as I said, holds a very different view. He says that these were the suhuf which had been collected in the times of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after his migration to Medina, they had been placed in a box, and this box, according to Tamanna, is referred to by Ibn Hajar in his commentary Fathul Bari, and the word sunduk occur in that, and occur in that particular commentary, and he says that these suhuf were placed in a box, and then that box was placed besides a pillar. And the reason that this was done was after migration, the Prophet wanted that the Muhajirun and the Ansar should be at par as far as the writing down of the Qur'an is concerned. So therefore, once the Ansar had copied the Qur'an, which had been revealed till that time, it was withdrawn, and then according to Tamanna Ahmadi, it was given in the custody of Hafsa, who was the wife of the Prophet, and she to him, since she was the most literate wife of the Prophet, so therefore they were given into her custody. And then every time, once the Muhajirun and the Ansar were at par in writing down the Quran, which was revealed till that time, So every time a new verse or a new passage would be revealed, the Suhuf would be recalled from Hafsa's house, and they would be transported back into the Masjid al-Nabawi, where these verses which had been recorded would be written by both the Ansar and the Muhajirun. They would update their masahif so that they could keep abreast with what has been revealed in the Qur'an. And according to Tamanna Ahmadi, it was this place which the Prophet would seek to recite or to offer his prayer once these mushaf would be withdrawn, and obviously they would be transported back and forth, but by the time they were not there, he would seek the place where the box was placed, and he would pray there, and he would think that this is a very blessed place since the masahif are placed here. And that is the reason that the Prophet has been seen in this narrative to be praying or beside that pillar. Now, he further says that after Hafsa's death, these suhuf had been taken by Marwan ibn Hakam, and they had been destroyed, and so that there was all the chance that people might add to or subtract from these written copies, because once a lot of copies had been made and the Quran had become very familiar and very popular and very all-pervasive in the Muslim Ummah, there was no need for these original suhuf to survive. So therefore, they had been destroyed by Marwan ibn Hakam. Tamanna Ahmadi also criticizes the fact that scholars who think that, scholars like obviously Ani and Kastalani, who think that this was the Musaf of Usman or one of the Musaf of Usman, he says that they have wrongly conjectured and wrongly said this because there is no corroborative proof that any Musaf was placed in the Masjid al-Nabawi or the Mosque of the Prophet, and perhaps they have conjectured that since Usman had sent a number of copies to various areas in his empire, so therefore he kept one copy in Medina in the Mosque of the Prophet. So this is a conjecture, according to him, which has absolutely no credence. In order to substantiate Tamanna, his own view, Tamanna has put forth the fact that as far as these suhuf are concerned, which were placed in the Mosque of the Prophet, they are only called as Al-Um and Al-Imam. So they have been called Al-Um and Imam because the only reason they could have been called so was the fact that they are the ones which were written down at the behest of the Prophet and which were in the custody of Hafsa. So he says, as far as the narratives of the collection of the Qur'an in the times of Abu Bakr and Usman are concerned, they're absolutely false and cannot be relied to. And the only established reality in this regard are the suhuf which were with Hafsa and which were actually the suhuf of the Prophet, and it was lodged with her. And it is only these suhuf which are called Imam or Al-Um. Now he goes on to establish this contention by various reasons and various arguments, and I'm now going to summarize those reasons and arguments before you, and later on we shall see how critically they stand to the test of criticism. Now, as far as his first argument is concerned, he says that the fact that Hafsa's Musaf or the Hafsa's Suhuf are called or Imam, it is absolutely apparent from a narrative that he quotes, and he quotes it from the Fazail al-Quran of Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Abi Shayba. He says that it is evident from this that the Suhuf of Hafsa were called and they could have only been called because they were actually written at the behest of his beloved husband, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this particular narrative, I'm going to read out this narrative and then see how Tamanna has posited or concluded from this narrative. عن أنس بن مالك قال: كان الصحف التي جمعها أبو بكر تسمى أما، فهي كانت عنده إلى أن توفاه الله، ثم عند عمر حتى توفاه الله، ثم عند حفصة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. فلما اختلف الناس في القرآن على عهد عثمان حتى اقتتل الغلمان والمعلمون، فبلغ ذلك عثمان فقال: هؤلاء عندنا يلحنون في كتاب الله، فمن نعى عنا يكون أكثر لحنا ويكذب بعضهم بعضا. فيا أصحاب رسول الله اجتمعوا فاكتبوا لكل مصر إماما يقتدون به ويصححون به مصاحفهم. ثم أرسل إلى حفصة أن أرسلي إلينا الأم ننسخها في المصاحف ثم نردها إليك، فأخبرها بما دعا إلى ذلك، فاستحسنت وأرسلت إليه الأم، فاستنسخ 5 مصاحف ثم أرسل إلى كل أفق مصحفا وسماه إماما لذلك الأفق وأمسك منها مصحفا عنده ليكون إماما لأهل المدينة. Anas ibn Malik reported, the suhuf collected by Abu Bakr were called They remained with him until his death, and then with Umar until his death. After this, they came in the custody of Hafsa, the Prophet's wife. When people started to differ about the Qur'an in the times of Uthman, so much so that boys and teachers of the Qur'an began to quarrel with one another, this news reached Uthman. So he remarked, these people are making mistakes while reading the Qur'an before us. So those who are far away from us would be making more mistakes and would also be rejecting one another. So, O companions of Prophet, gather together and write an imam, primary mushaf, for each city, which people would follow and through it correct their own masahif. He then sent a message to Hafsa to send him the saying, we will copy this into masahif and return it to you. He informed her of the reasons which induced him to undertake this task. She expressed her liking for this undertaking and sent him the imam. Uthman made 5 copies of this and sent to each part of his territory 1 copy and named it the imam of that territory and kept 1 copy for himself so that it could become the imam of the people of Medina. So this is the narrative which Tamanna has cited, and I should also like to point out that this narrative has been cited from a personal collection of Qazi Raza Hussain of Patna and is cited on page 32 of a manuscript that he had. The Fazail al-Quran of Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Abi Shayba does not exist, and it is perhaps found in manuscript form, and it is from here that Tamanna has copied out this narrative. Now, the second point which Tamanna makes in this regard is that he says that if someone says that the existence of Hafsa's suhuf or Hafsa's leaves is an established fact, they could still be a personal collection. So why should we contend that they were written at the behest of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and why should it be given a special importance? Because it could be a personal collection, as we know that many Sahaba had their own collection in those times. So he says that the answer to this question, he raised this question himself and he answers the question himself again. He says the answer to this question is that in the concocted narrative of the collection of the Quran in times of Uthman, we know that Uthman had called for Hafsa and asked her to give her the mushaf or the suhuf which resided with her, so that he could make copies of those suhuf. So he says that the fact that only her suhuf were called by Uthman clearly shows that they were the ones which Uthman was after, just because they were the ones which were written at the behest of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. For had this not been so, he says that there were other wives of the Prophet as well, and they had their own personal collections as well. So had this not been the case, he would never have asked Hafsa for those masahif or for those suhuf, because asking for Hafsa's suhuf clearly shows that they were the ones which were written at the behest of the Prophet, because as we know, other wives too would have those suhuf, and why would there be this cause of singling out the suhuf of Hafsa? So he says that the only reason is that they were the ones which were written at the behest of the Prophet. Otherwise, other wives too had these suhuf, and they were never called, and Uthman never asked them for those suhuf, and he regarded them to be their personal collection. But however, in this case, he did not regard these suhuf to be a personal collection of Hafsa, and he called upon Hafsa to hand over these suhuf so that he could have them copied out. Now he further, in order to substantiate his claim that these were the suhuf which would be periodically withdrawn from the mosque of the Prophet when new verses would be revealed and then inserted, and then they would be returned back to the place and to Hafsa's place, and then they would go back and forth from the mosque of the Prophet. They would be placed in the mosque for some time so that people could update their masahif till that particular time, and then they would be withdrawn to Hafsa's house. And then when more verses were revealed, they were written in those suhuf in the house of the Prophet, and then later on again they were transported back to the mosque of the Prophet. And so in this matter, this was a process of going from one place to another, He says that this is very evident from the fact that they were withdrawn at times, and he quotes a narrative in this regard from the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and he says it is very clear to see, very clearly we can see that they were withdrawn from time to time for the purpose as just mentioned. So this narrative is recorded in the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and the words are, again these are from An Salama annahu kana yataharra mawzi al-Mushaf wa zakara anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam yataharra zalika al-makan wa kana bain al-mimbar wal qibla mamarru shah. So Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid narrates from Salama, again we have the same people narrating this narrative, that he or Salama would try to locate the place where the Musaf had been placed, and mention that the Prophet too would try to locate that place. And it was between the pulpit and the Qibla, being as big as a place through which a goat could pass. So this is how he says that. And he says that the words which clearly say that the Musaf was withdrawn from time to time can be seen from the words, the Prophet too would try to locate that place. So the Arabic words are, أنه كان يتحرى موضع المصحف. أنه كان يتحرى موضع المصحف. So he would try to find the place at which the Musaf had been placed. So he says that it clearly says that the word موضع المصحف clearly says that he would seek that place because in those particular times when he would pray there, the Musaf would not be placed there. It had been withdrawn back to the house of Hafsa. And it was in this absence of this Musaf that he would pray at precisely the same place at which the box housing those suhuf was placed. So he says that this could have only happened if the Musaf or the suhuf were not there. Otherwise, these words, yataharra, mawzi al-Musaf, are absolutely inappropriate. The narrator would never have said that he sought the place where the suhuf had been placed. So it was exactly at the place where the suhuf had been placed, and which at times when they were drawn back to the house of Hafsa, that a gap was left that the Prophet would pray on that. So he says that is very clear. Now, while also pointing out some details of this pillar of Ustuwanah al-Mushaf, the pillar of the Musaf, he refers to Ibn Hajar. Tamanna refers to Ibn Hajar, and he says that Ibn Hajar has given us certain other details about this Ustuwanah, which we need to gauge as well. So I'm just going to read out Ibn Hajar's passage, which says so. قَالُوا الَّتِي عِنْدَ الْمُصْحَفِ, and we know that Ibn Hajar is actually explaining this hadith of Al-Bukhari, which I just read out in the beginning, and Ibn Hajar, being a shari or a commentator of Imam Bukhari, is actually just explaining this narrative in his own view. So قوله التي عند المصحف هذا دال على أنه كان للمصحف موضع خاص به ووقع عند مسلم باللفظ يصلي وراء الصندوق وكأنه كان للمصحف صندوق يوزع فيه والأسطوانة المذكورة حقق لنا بعض مشايخنا أنها المتوسطة في الروضة المكرمة وأنها تعرف بأسطوانة المهاجرين. قال وروي عن عائشة أنها كانت تقول لو عرفها الناس لأضطربوا عليها بالسهام وإنها أسرتها إلى ابن زبير فكان يكسر الصلاة عندها. The words, the pillar near the Musaf of the narrative show that there was a specific place at which the Musaf was placed, and in the Sahih of Muslim, the words are, he prayed behind the box. Now, I like to point out here that in the extant versions of Sahih Muslim, we do not find the words which Imam Ibn Hajar has cited. Perhaps the manuscript or the version or the script of Muslim which Imam had before him is not the one which is extant, because as you can see, the words in the version which Imam Ibn Hajar had before him, the words are yusalli wara sunduq. Prophet would pray behind the sunduq or the box. The extant versions, on the contrary, have the words Ra'aytu an-nabi yataharra salat indaha. So indaha are the words, and we do not have the word sunduq in the extant versions. So I was just reading out a translation and continuing with the translation. There was a specific place at which the Musaf was placed, and in the Sahih Muslim the words are, he prayed behind the box. implying that the Mus'haf was placed in the box. Some of our teachers have corroborated this opinion for us that the pillar referred to was the middle one in the Prophet's tomb, and that it was known as the pillar of the Muhajirun. It is narrated from Aisha that had people been aware of it, they would have cast lots to come near it, and that she had secretly told Ibn Zubair about it, and he would pray a lot near it. So this is a description by Ibn Hajar regarding the pillar of the Mus'haf. Now, Imadi is also very stressful of the fact. He stresses the fact and emphasizes the fact that the words Al-Ustuwanah allati inda al-Mushaf, which are the words which Imam Bukhari has recorded, he says that the words Al-Ustuwanah allati inda al-Mushaf, which would mean that the pillar near which the Mus'haf was placed, they could be a cause of confusion for many, and he thinks that perhaps they have been a cause of confusion for Annie as well, because it has led Annie and other people to believe that the words, when the words are signify the fact that there was a pillar besides which the Mus'haf was placed, so they would clearly think that this could have only been the Mus'haf of Usman, which he had placed in his own times. He says that this confusion can be easily resolved if we see that in some of the other narratives, the actual words are Al-Ustuwanah allati inda mawzi al-Mushaf, which have been recorded by Musnad of Ahmad. So the word mawzi al-Mushaf, mawzi has been suppressed. In the original, in the previous part, as I just said, the words are Al-Ustuwanah allati inda al-Mushaf, the pillar which is near the Mus'haf. He says that this is actually not the case, because there is in some of the other narratives we have another construction, that is Al-Ustuwanah allati inda mawzi al-Mushaf, which means the pillar which was near the place on which the Mus'haf was placed. It was the exact place on which the Mus'haf was placed, and since this word, the word mawzi, has not been found in certain narratives, so this could be a cause of confusion, and people would still think that Al-Ustuwanah allati inda al-Mushaf would mean the Mus'haf, the Ustuwanah, or the pillar near which the Mus'haf have been placed, signifying the fact that when Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid came with Salma al-Aqwa ibn al-Aqwa to the mosque of the Prophet to pray, then that Mus'haf was still found there, because the words are Al-Ustuwanah allati inda al-Mushaf, which could mean that the pillar which was near the Mus'haf. However, he says that these are the words which apparently give this meaning, but the fact of the matter is that the meaning is entirely different, and the meaning is Al-Ustuwanah allati inda mawzi al-Mushaf, the pillar which was near the place of the Mus'haf, where the Mus'haf had been placed, and as we know, Tamanna's own view is that it had been withdrawn. So it was in place, but it was not there when the Salama and Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid were there. So that is what he has posited. In this regard, Tamanna also says that in one version of of Badruddin Aini's commentary on Bukhari, the words are, again, we know that Badruddin Aini is also one of the commentators of Imam Bukhari's Al-Jami al-Sahih. So he says the words are Allati inda al-Mushaf. While he explains these words, Qawluhu Allati inda al-Mushaf, Haza yadullu annahu kana fi masjid Rasulullah mawzi'un khas lil-Mushaf, allazi kana fi ahdi Usman. So the expression, the pillar near the Mus'haf, signifies that in the mosque of the Messenger of God, there was a special place for the Mus'haf in the times of Usman. So these are the words of Badruddin Aini. However, he has not signified, Tamanna has not clarified that which exactly version is he referring to, because in the extant versions of Badruddin Aini, we have slightly different words, and to the effect, the words which the later part of his words are أنه كان في مسجد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم موضع خاص للمصحف الذي كان ثمة من عهد عثمان, which are pretty similar, but as you can see, slightly different as well. So here the meaning would be that there was a special place for the Mus'haf which was there since the times of Usman. So this is how Aini has interpreted this, and we can clearly see, as Tamanna has posited, that this error, according to him, has occurred because he has not given due regard to the fact that the word Allati inda al-Mushaf is actually Allati inda mawzi al-Mushaf, which means that the place of the Mus'haf, and therefore at that time, that particular place was empty, and there was a void there, and it is not the fact that the Mus'haf was still there. Now, Tamanna also thinks that there are some people who think that when Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid visited the Prophet's mosque with Salama ibn al-Aqwa, then this was perhaps before the martyrdom of Usman radhiyallahu anhu, and it was because it was in this time, this era, that it is very likely that there was a Musaf which he had placed. He says that this is historically not possible. And the reason that he gives is, he says that our books of Rijal clearly tell us that Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid died in 147 Hijrah. And Usman was assassinated in 36 Hijrah. So if it is supposed that Yazid was even 10 or 12 years old at that time, so this would mean that Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid would have to be 125 years old at the time of his death. If he was to see the Musaf before the martyrdom of Usman, at the young age of even 10 and 12, then his age when he died in 147 Hijrah should have been around 125 years. And we know very clearly that narrators whose age exceed 100 are often indicated as the Mu'ammirun by the authorities of Rijal, and we can clearly see that this should not have been the case. And we can see that he could not have visited before the martyrdom of Usman. And Tamanna also says that just as it is not possible for this incident to have happened, this incident of Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid and Salma coming there before the martyrdom of Usman, for reasons just stated, he says that it is equally improbable that it could have taken place after Usman's martyrdom, because after his death it is highly improbable that Musaf of Usman, the way things happened, would have been left intact later on, and right up to the time when Salama and Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid got the chance to pray near that pillar which was placed. He says this is very improbable and could not have been possible at all. So viewers, this is a summary of how our previous scholars have viewed the Musaf which was placed near this Ustuwanah. And in the next session, inshallah, we'll analyze Tamanna's views as well as the views of Qastalani and Aini, and see whether the Musaf which has been referred to in this narrative is the Musaf of Usman, or is it does this refer to the Suhuf of Hafsa, which were placed in a box, and these Suhuf of Hafsa actually were the Suhuf which had been written in the times of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and which had been lodged in his own times with his beloved wife. So we should analyze which of these two views are closer to the truth, or is there a third view in this regard? أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.